Folks, there are people out there, right? Good afternoon. How you guys doing? All right. Welcome to the Hoc River Committee. It's Monday, March 22nd. My understanding is Councilman Labange will be stepping in at any time. And Councilman Wisar, I think, is still stuck in budget and finance. So I appreciate your being here. Can share with you, was it last week, Carol? We were in Washington? Was last week? We were in D.C. last week, and we made our rounds. We had LA River Day with, I'd say, about 6 congressional offices showed up, and we had the Army Corps there. I want to thank them. I'm not sure if they're present today, but thank them for helping us facilitate. We had folks from the county. Anybody from the state? Sean Woods from State Parks. And very well. Oh, and of course, Power, Water, and Power. Rahman Raj was there. And very well presented. We were able to give some very clear presentation in how we are working in a collaborative fashion and getting this program off the ground and demonstrate some traction and real results. And so it's very, very exciting, and we're making our appeals for federal dollars. But I think just as important, we're working in a place in which we're creating environments so that we can work with different agencies, Housing and Redevelopment, EPA, Department of Transportation, looking at the respective missions and how they actually impact the riverfront corridor, and as much as we work with the Army Corps and redefining and adding a multiplicity of roles to the flood control channel. So it was very, very, I think, encouraging. And if anything, we are giving the message that we can create jobs, that this project can create jobs and attain different levels of fruition when it comes to water quality, water treatment, natural habitats. And so from that point of view, it feels really good. So I just thought I'd share that, even though it's not on the agenda. It's just an informational item. And I want to thank the staff for their hard work. That being said, let's get started. I can be asked, and I'll ask Councilor Labange when he gets here, if he agrees with the actions, we can move on those actions. If not, this will be a report from the chair to the council, and we can move it as such. So without further ado, we can add number 1.
Item number 1 is a report from the Bureau of Engineering on the establishment of an LA River Special Projects Office and on the implementation of the LA River Revitalization Master Plan.
Great.
Good afternoon, Councilman.
Good afternoon, sir.
Larry Hsu from the Bureau of Engineering, LA River Project Office. Under our report, I'll just cover a few of these items. Under river governance, we are continuing to meet with the LA County on the master use agreement and trying to establish one. We met on February 24th, and our next meeting is March 31st. We also held the first meeting of the River Cooperation Committee, which was formed as a result of the MOU that was adopted last year. It was held on March 8th, and we will meet quarterly going forward. And this is a meeting between the city, the county, and a number of different city departments, and with the Army Corps also participating to coordinate projects. As far as the Corps study is concerned, we are continuing to, okay, thanks. We're continuing to evaluate with the Corps and develop criteria to evaluate project measures as part of the Corps process, and winnowing down some 200-odd measures and locations down to a manageable set of measures.
Right.
And you just talked about the LA River Day in Washington, D.C., so thank you.
I didn't mean to steal your thunder there. Sorry, Larry.
As far as projects are concerned, North Atwater Park expansion project is nearing bid and award phase. We are in the process of seeking approval from the Board of Recreation Park Commissioners on a use agreement. After that, the project is ready to go. The funding is available, so we will be moving forward to bid and award in a couple of months.
Great. I think in terms of the progress we're making, what they found very exciting is the fact that the state controls what's called the bow tie, And that in of itself allows us to create a direct relationship, a physical one, with the river channel. So if we can move as quickly as we hope to, that could be one of the first tangible results of all this work and effort. And it actually gives us a way to test our theories and look at our assertions and build up more confidence to continue doing this throughout the river corridor. So anything else there you want to add?
Just a couple more
Sure,
projects.
please.
Sunny Nook River Park project, we are have a couple of hurdles to go. One is to establish a lease between Department of Recreation and Parks and the DWP for a portion of that land. That is still pending. And we are also seeking a portion of the funding for this project is also continues to be on hold, a portion of the funding from the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy.
Okay.
So those are the two things from that. The Elysian Valley Bikeway greening project, we are trying to establish a MOU between the MRCA and the city for construction and maintenance of that project. Councilman?
I'd like to welcome Mr. Councilmember Tom LaBonge, the Honorable LaBonge.
Thank you very much.
Can we just leave this room?
We just did.
Okay, all right.
And finally, the Albion Dairy River Park project, Department of Recreation and Parks submitted a Prop 84 grant application on March 1st, and the project will require additional funding to realize the complete vision for that project.
Great. Thanks. I don't have any more questions. He just gave us a report, Councilmember, on the all the great work they're doing, the Special Project Office.
What's new with the Fletcher Drive to Riverside Drive bikeway?
Fletcher Drive. Well, the construction for the bikeway is ongoing. It's going to be completed this summer. The greening component, which is a project that we hope to have the MRCA do, they have grant monies for. We have to establish an MOU in order for them to move forward. So we've cleared Department of Recreation.
So like it's summer, the 21st of June or the August, or what's it going to be?
I think it's June.
Good, okay, good.
But I can't speak for, you know.
No, I'm going to hold you to
project
it, so
team.
that's good. And let me ask you the next question.
You're in trouble now, Larry.
Universal City, have you ever met with them? They have a proposal to redevelop that whole area.
I will have to defer to my river sister Carol on the side
All
for
right.
that. Thanks.
You should know, Tom, that they did come into the planning. They were doing their planning work and design.
Uh-huh.
And we were trying to encourage a stronger interaction with the riverfront, and
Right.
they didn't seem too excited about that.
Well, they did, when was this? How long ago?
It's about a year ago.
Yeah, well, they changed a little bit.
Okay.
But have you seen it recently at all?
Carol Armstrong, Bureau of Engineering,
Dr.
LA River Project.
Armstrong.
Yes. We submitted comments on the EIR suggesting that we would like to see the river bikeway along the river at Universal, and we would like to see them explore possibilities of helping us to pay for that. And we know that there's an upcoming meeting that the county is going to host, and we're going to join that meeting.
Yeah, but I want to expedite you out there sooner, get you in there. What they do propose is they thought of going out the river, right on the river, but when you get to the United States Highway 101, Hollywood Freeway, US 101, the river is here. The river is right here, and this is the ground, and the freeway sits on the ground. And then the river is trapezoidal, or what is the river there? Vertical?
It's box channel.
Box channel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know the word. So it's very difficult at that point to be at the river. So basically what we'd have to look at is coming up at Lancashire and then maybe going over Whipple and then reconnecting on what is a little wash behind Fire Station 86 on Vineland to get up to Moore Park and then to go west on Moore Park. And the other problem that we have too, Mr. Reyes, is KCBS, KCAL, Channel 29. They have the properties on both sides of the river. So we couldn't go through that area of Studio City because it's a studio. It's, so you're familiar with the Commander. Yeah. Excuse me, Commander, I made a mistake there. So we have to look at those so I could help expedite that because I think it's our goal really to have that bikeway get out to Sepulveda Basin and do that. And last word on Sunny Nook Bridge.
Sunny Nook, there's two things that we need to move forward. One is the social lease between Recreation Parks and DWP.
Yeah, Mr. Moon.
Yes.
And Mr. Moon, are you here for this?
Not that specifically.
But could you answer the question?
I can.
You want to make me and Mr. Reyes happy?
Hi, Marvin Moon, engineering from Water and Power. I talked to the real estate division about the lease for the park. They said that the lease was approved by the Board of Commissioners and they can move forward with those terms that they would like if they want to. They had asked for additional terms, I think 3 additional terms, which are under consideration, and they're going to respond to them in about a week with some language that they think might work. May not be what quite
does this
looking
work for you? Do you know about this?
We do. We just need to make sure that the term of the lease is agreeable to the state grant, which I think we need, Larry, up
Right.
to 25 years?
That's right. The original one that was passed by DWP board was a 5-year lease with an option to extend to 10, but the grantors need 25-year. That was one.
That's
that was
one of the
items.
terms they asked for.
Right.
I don't know what the response is from our real estate division.
But we could figure that out. How about the
correct.
money?
Money settled.
Money's
I don't
settled.
think that's.
Yeah, they
Money's
want-
not the issue.
Right.
Good.
The other thing was they wanted Water and Power to
It's a big step.
pay for any sort of upgrades if we ever use the property again.
Right.
Well, you feel like you tear it up, but you're not going to ever use the property again.
Well, it is used for what it is, for
Yeah, it's transmission.
Transmission work.
But you're not going to do anything.
Part of another report, though.
Not anticipated.
Yeah, all right, good. Thank you, Mr. Moon. Way to jump up there.
All right.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Okay.
The other important holdup on this is the that report on was the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy monies are needed to be
Frozen.
freed up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's part of the project funding.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Sue. Okay, so we'll note and file this report. Item number 2.
Item number 2 is a presentation from the chair of the River Revitalization Corporation on its first quarterly report for 2010.
All right, big drum roll for Mr. Chandler. Come on up. How are we doing, sir?
Good.
Good to have you here. Thank you for taking the time. So thank you for responding to, I sent a letter back on February 5th, and we do have some information from you, but can you please give us any information you're comfortable with?
Do you have the presentation that I sent to Lupe last week?
Yes.
In front of you? Okay.
I don't have it in front of me. But that's
Which,
yeah.
do you have a copy of it? No?
It may be somewhere, but, oh, good, thanks a lot. Thank you.
How much time do you think we should take here this morning on this report?
As efficient as you can be.
Okay. Since it's my first report, I put a little more detail than we probably want to go over. But
Okay.
We've got 7 board members now seated. We've had 4 board meetings. We've had 1 retreat, probably 2 or 3 dozen meetings with both city family and stakeholders. So I think the good news is we've got a board that's active, working. I think there's probably not a week go by that we don't have 2 or 3 meetings. And since this is all volunteer, that's about as active a board as I think you'll find.
Yes, you're right.
Structurally, what we've done is we've set up 3 different working committees, real estate, funding, and a marketing. And in my next presentation to this committee, I'll have a work plan and timetable from particularly the 2 more important ones, the real estate and the funding. I will be talking about the marketing a little bit later
Okay.
this afternoon. I'm not going to read them, but in your packet you'll see the mission statement and our key goals that we've agreed upon, which, as any of you have ever been through mission statement and goal setting, is unnecessary, but oftentimes taking the procedure. So with 7 of us, I'm delighted that we kind of got through that in the last few weeks. We have a small, quick informational website that we put up at larivercorp.com, sort of giving our mission, talking about the board, how to contact us. We have a good working relationship established with the CRA, which is our current godfather. And based on the feedback we've gotten, I think we have good progress building relationships with the city family and many of the departments.
So when we talk about those relationships, my assumptions are that eventually, because it's all about learning and maturing into a body that can have that interaction with the city, but eventually we'll have protocol, an understanding of the engagement of council offices and the various departments and learning and
Right.
seeing how we can leverage each other's roles, because every council district has their sense of what environments they're creating, understanding the mayor's objectives as well on a citywide level. My assumption is that you will have those types of protocols eventually in place.
Yeah. I think the phase to date has been really one of meeting and learning and building relationships, and nothing's been documented vis-a-vis protocols, but I know you've asked for that, and that's certainly on our to-do list.
Thank you.
Let me talk about some of the early challenges that we're seeing. 4 of our board are real estate professionals, and they, in their own businesses, know well that this real estate marketplace is very, very tough to think that we're going to find developers, even if we have the lot and we have all the go-aheads, who are going to say, yes, I'm happy to invest in Riverside adjacent real estate projects today. So 2 assumptions we've made in the real estate board. One is until we have staff, until we have more than just a volunteer board, we're not going to take on real estate projects yet. What we are going to do is advise others, facilitate, but we're not actually want to own title and really kind of play a role that the master plan sort of envisions today. As the economy improves, as we get actually staff and people that can execute on a daily basis, our goal is to kind of go back to that objective of that the master plan talked about. Second is to be look for early wins. We're not, I think, going to be content to sort of work on 15 things simultaneously and 3 years from now still be talking about stuff. Is to look for things that we can get in, both as a facilitator, kind of go for, and look for wins within the next year and a half. I think our third goal is not to make promises that we can't keep. So, respective to a public meeting, we're unlikely to sort of predict that we're going to be on this property by a certain date unless we're far along on that process. So, one of our board members in particular served on a public commission where they made promises after the riots, and many of those weren't delivered. And so she's, I think, been a good counsel to make sure that we deliver on what we promise.
In terms of revenue generation,
Thank you.
working in partnership with different government entities, there are opportunities there.
Correct.
And so when we talk about creating revenue, there's only so much we can do right now. And thanks to the CRA, we have a very limited resource base to do the basic work that needs to get done. So from the board's perspective, in terms of timing, and I understand, believe me, I understand chairing planning, land use, and management, what real estate is and isn't doing, but looking at opportunities for developing this revenue base, how else do you foresee that occurring?
In terms of fundraising, or in terms of actually
Fundraising,
taking it, getting into the...
However you want to define revenue.
Okay. Well, revenue is clearly going to be our biggest need, our biggest challenge, right? So we're a board given a few $100,000 that we have yet to receive, but beyond that, there's funding ideas, but there's no mechanisms that we have.
But there is quite a bit of in-kind support from the CRA. And that does have a significant value.
Absolutely. But in order to take on the actual real estate projects, we're going to need additional funding. And we have a committee that's looking at public and private money. We're looking at various real estate transaction leverages. And to my right is Don Spivak, who's kind of advising us on many of those. Don, do you want to add to that?
Yes, thank you. Don Spivak from the Redevelopment Agency. As Mr. Chandler was saying, we're looking at a number of revenue things, revenue-generating opportunities. The first is to put in place the CRA funds. And so we're in the process of drafting the necessary fiscal controls and an agreement between the corporation and CRA so that we can transfer funds into the corporation's own account. But we've also started some conversations with city planning about ways in which we might be able to generate revenues through land transactions, through such things as transfers of density, moving density about, as, for example, land gets acquired that ultimately is going to be kept as open space, by creating conservation easements or by creating additional mechanisms that allow the density to be transferred or shifted around on a limited geographic basis.
Right.
That could be collateralized in a way that would generate revenues that could accrue to the corporation and allow them to do additional activities.
Or if you look at the Royal Specific Plan, you look at city control land and what that will do in terms of its air rights and its value in terms of creating incentives and or hooks to bring in an investment would be another strategy.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So in the funding area, we're certainly not waiting. We're just a matter of, there's a huge amount of learning to go on, and when you have a part-time volunteer board, you
No, believe me, I was at the retreat and I was just very, very encouraged and excited to see the level of energy that's there. I mean, it's very clear that you have got a lot of talent and a lot of great group of folks. It's a matter of how we go through this process together.
Thank you. The last challenge we found is the environment that we're in is one where the perception that we see about the river is often very negative. If you ask sort of citizens out there, you ask people in the funding community, a lot of the real estate, they're saying, do we have a river? Is that concrete thing I drive by? And I'm going to go into this in just a minute. The marketing, we feel, is sort of a way to sort of get out in front of those issues, change some perception, build some awareness, and in this case, hopefully create a positive atmosphere rather than what potentially exists on one that's more negative. So let me just give you a little bit more detail in terms of what some of the committees are working on. As Don said, we're still working on the documents to get the transfer of the CRA-held funds. Till then, we don't have a ability to get staff or consultants. Hopefully, within a month or 60 days, both those things will start to happen. We're still in the market for 2 additional board members. I've asked the mayor's office to hold off on additional appointees until we can see kind of what are the gaps in knowledge and what do we need to really kind of be more effective. They've agreed. We're starting to kind of source candidates. So if any of you have other ideas that didn't make the first cut, but you think we should look at, happy to hear from you.
A skill set that, and I'll make this public, a skill set that we're looking for would be an individual who understands the railroad, if anybody, but someone who understands the railroad and how to how to work that, because it's almost a government in of itself. So how we engage them and how they work their mechanizations is very unique. So I think that skill set would be something that we would
Should we write a letter to the head of Union Pacific and ask they want to appoint a board member?
Oh, that's kind of scary.
Yeah, I'm not sure what would happen.
Yeah, but either they do or they don't.
Yeah,
you know,
that's a good idea.
I mean, they own the property. I would think that. You know, I met the head of Union Pacific the other night, and you know, I think we could.
I think it's worth a shot.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody opposed in this room?
Okay.
All right.
Let's
bring it on.
Got 2 spots. You know, maybe get their Western regional representative.
Yeah.
Or something.
Worst case is we make a relationship. So.
Okay, that's true.
As I mentioned before, we are working on protocols and staffing plan and the work plans, which we will bring to this committee either at the next presentation or thereafter. On the funding side, we've identified a long list with Don's help of the opportunities. We're dividing the 3 of us on that committee with various responsibilities among those opportunities, and just about to start a sort of work plan to pursue those in more detail.
In terms of marketing and I'm sorry, I want to make sure you finish with the marketing piece.
I haven't started marketing yet.
Oh, okay.
That was just on the funding.
Okay.
On the real estate side, what we've done is divided the river into 4 different sections, each with a board member taking responsibility for the activity on each of their sections. We've prioritized the various land opportunities that exist, and we're starting to sort of prioritize them among speed to market, size, some of the other kind of key factors. Started to meet with some of the landholders, and every week I think we're getting a deeper knowledge and hopefully finding what we call the value add right now, which is what we're hoping to bring. Marketing. So I talked about the perception that we think we're inheriting about the river, and we've put together a marketing plan that addresses that. So on the next page, go into a little more detail on that. We're trying to support our key committees of the real estate and the funding with a marketing plan, build some awareness among both sort of key constituents, river family, stakeholders, Riverside communities, to both understand what our mission is and also how the river itself is being transformed. Kind of the least controversial side is to sort of sell the corporation. We're putting together both a brochure and improving the original website with a much more professional version. The one that I wanted to spend a little more time with both of you is on the consumer side. So I think our marketing committee's belief is, even though we're a development corporation, in order to sort of reach out to the stakeholders, the developers, the communities, what we're going to need to talk to, it's, we believe, not enough just to sort of stay in the business-to-business marketing world, but to take a lead on some consumer marketing. So 2 main approaches that we're looking at. One is some modest PR with an agency that would have expertise in the nonprofit sector. In both of these, I think the background of this is the following. Even though this committee has done, scads of great work over the last, 2, 3, 4 years, the perception out there is still that the river is not very usable. We don't know where to park. We don't know how to use it. We don't know really what it is. The city website, lariver.org, is really organized for people in this room, not necessarily the general public. If you go to there, you really have to hunt hard to find out how actually to use the river. So our hypothesis is, in order to sort of change this perception of the river, in order to build enthusiasm for our efforts, we're going to have to reach out and kind of market the river in a broader way than has been done before. And so the PR agency would be the first approach. The second would be to either take the existing lariver.org and really fundamentally transform it to a consumer portal, or to create a separate consumer-only website that would say, here's how to use the river, here's what the river is, here's what the future of the river is, and build it entirely from really a user guide perspective, not a sort of city family, welcome from you and the mayor and all of the pieces that currently exist. This is controversial because when you're starting a business development company, often you should stay out of the consumer space. But in this case, we think for us to be effective, these are 2 directions that are needed. My note is, it would seem like this would benefit all of the different activities that go on in this ad hoc committee, which is to have a perception out there of the river, that it is usable, there are access points, there is fishing, there's bird watching, there's biking, all the things that go on out there that are sort of under the radar of, I've spent quite a bit of time on Santa Monica Mount Conservancy, FOLAR, all the different kind of key sites that talk about the river. Not one of them really has a sort of state-of-the-art, here's what the river is, here's how to use the river, here's what the future of the river is. So our idea would be, we would be happy to take the lead on putting together either that website, that separate one, or transforming the city, lariver.org, but we think it's a needed step for our success.
My immediate reaction is one in which I look at the limited public funds that have been allocated at this stage of this organization. And I believe that there are opportunities with existing websites in creating the type of information that you speak of. My hesitation, quite frankly, is one of public safety and issues that we've come across with the Army Corps and the county since they manage inside of the river at various stretches. And so our ability to improve our public safety programs and policies, I believe we're still evolving in terms of how we are able to ensure these type of safety nets, safety programs, and that dialogue is still continuing now with the county and the Army Corps. My hesitation, one, is of liability. I don't believe we need to make it sound like it's unsafe to go into the river. There's ways to address it and approach it, but I don't believe we have been able to get to the point where we are comfortable knowing that the county is still working with us and the Army Corps in terms of what is the approach. From our funding sources, we're still trying to establish the type of scenarios that's going to allow us to move that kind of money into areas of improvement, physical improvement. But at this point, I don't believe we're ready for that. Again, given the limitations of public funds, I would say if we could continue looking at that to understand how we could augment existing sites. And the mayor or I don't have to introduce people, we don't have to welcome them, but we could have the ability to create that information piece that you're seeking with existing sites. That tends to be the position that I would take at this moment, and speaking with the CRA, figuring out, okay, what are other funding strategies to get a project like that completed. That's the gist of my reaction to that one.
Tom, is there anything you want to add to that before I respond?
I was going to say, too, the name Foundation, is that in your title?
No, it's not.
Should it be in your title?
The foundation's a different entity.
I know, I just wanted to ask.
No.
Okay.
We're not trying to
All right, I got it. But
compete with Foundation.
It's okay. Here's the other thing you got to do right now. If you want to do something right now to change everybody's opinion on it, you got to get about 5 little dams. They got them over at Water and Power. The guy at Water and Power developed them out in the spreading basins like in 1965, and put check dams in the low flow season to put water back in there. When you cross the freeways and you look to the river and you see concrete, it does nothing for you. But if you see water, you'd be inspired. And, you know, you could lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. But what you could do is lead people to the water. And that's the biggest thing, in my opinion, more than planning and land use, is putting an image of water into the river constantly that would cover at the base of the water. You know, if it's a 2 or 3 foot dam, and the water would flow over, also in working with other entities to try to then capture the trash that comes out of the variety of tunnels that carry water to the river with city trash in it to try to extract it upstream as opposed to the Long Beach. And continue to push for the bikeway, because the more people who come to the bikeway will automatically become river advocates. There are people outside this room who don't know it, and it is something I think you should do in that aspect. And no, this is unfortunately, I don't know, maybe Doctor, you may be the youngest person in this room, maybe. It's going to be a 50-year project, you know. So if they have ERIP in 50 years, you could, I just think it's going to be a long project. And the biggest task is the railroads. When I started here 35 years ago, Mike McKelvey was the secretary of the Board of Public Works. He said, "Tom, just want to let you know, the railroads, you can't win with the railroads, because if you beat them here, then they'll try to get beat at 1,000 other cities across the way. So they're a different enterprise, and they too are revitalizing their whole thought and process. So try to make them a partner would be more in sense of making an adversary. But anyway, water in the river, and I'll help you with that, Harry.
Well, as I understand our charter, it's not to be in the river. It's to be adjacent to the river and work on that. So I firmly believe we can't develop outside of the river unless the river is more usable and attractive. So I'm completely behind you, but I'm not sure that's our territory to be advocating dams on the river.
Check dams.
If you think check dams. If you think otherwise, I'm happy to consider it. But I personally agree with you. I just not sure who in the city family is responsible for putting a check dam up.
Well, we could start. Here's the thing: we spend millions of dollars trying to clean up the river, and if we have these check dams at certain points, we could screen the trash out before it all could catch at the check. But anyway, I'll work with you on that.
Okay.
So let me just go back to the kind of consumer idea and your concerns, Councilman Reyes. So if I can just reiterate the two concerns I heard. One is liability, and one is, is this a good use of resources? So in terms of liability, there's no question that the length of the river is not, quote, open with a big open sign yet. But there are a number of pocket parks, there's a bikeway, there's a number of places that only insiders tend to know about. And unless it moves from sort of insider to everyone, our job is going to be very, very hard, because we're going to have to sort of advocate to, put a lot of money into these big projects along the river that, a lot of people are going to say, well, is the river really worth investing in? Is the river really worth putting whatever this development that we're going to be working on? And, if we were inheriting a river that was flowing and green and all the things that we kind of hope for later, I wouldn't have this problem. I think there's a way to stage the information on the usage. So what I would say in terms of liability, one, we have lawyers, we'll put the necessary disclaimers so the corporation's protected. But in terms of for the city, we need to sort of build on what's the information flow that the city feels comfortable in. You may be aware of a book by Joe Linton that's really described how to use that. That would be one of the basis for the website that we're talking about. Joe's agreed to give us that content and update it. So we're not trying to sort of invent from whole cloth things that shouldn't happen or that haven't been happening. And certainly I would commit that we would not be putting things on that haven't been sort of vetted from the liability standpoint. From the financial standpoint, a website is actually the cheapest sort of marketing that you can do. The costs of building this and the business-to-business website are probably going to be in the sort of $20,000 amount to start from scratch with two sort of state-of-the-art websites. And so, relative to the hundreds of thousands that we're looking to kind of take over from CRA and put to good use, I think that's an appropriate use of funds if we can build the enthusiasm from that, have a place to point. As I said, 80% of the meetings we're taking with outsiders, they're coming in with question marks. Why would we work on a river project? If we can point them to a website saying, look at these pictures, look at how it's being used, look at the bike path that's already there. Look how, most people are not even aware there's soft bottom parts, that there's birds on there. So if we have a place to show, then that conversation gets a lot easier. Right now we're trying to sort of describe it. Oh, trust me, it's there. And you can't just say, go look at the master plan, right? They're not going to invest that kind of time. You really want a website that shows this off. So I think in terms of financing, this is well worth it.
Well, just to respond, let's look at the leveraging opportunity. There's no reason why we couldn't add a section like that to an existing website, and it'll achieve the same thing without having to go through that whole process of starting one up. I think that is just as productive and just as efficient. And I will make sure that the different offices will work with you on that, so we can add all that information that you are referring to, and I think that can help build that up. I'm trying to be as careful as possible with every dime that we have. That's a lot of, that is public funds, and so that's something that I'm being very careful with. And again, I want to support you on this. I don't want to discourage you. I think we can find a way to meet in the middle and trying to make this thing happen the way you're describing it, again, and using existing resources and leveraging what we already have in place.
Who would you recommend sort of takes leadership for the existing city website that I could meet with as a kind of key stakeholder?
Well, currently, who put together the current one? Mr. Sue and?
We did.
Okay.
We had a team to do it.
So working with ITA, so we with Lupe Vela and the River office, we can get together with you and put together a strategy to make that happen.
All right, I'll certainly be happy to meet with that and see whether that can accomplish our goals.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chandler.
Thank you.
Again, I appreciate the first draft of your response to my letter, and I'm looking forward to the final report. And again, it's a way to encourage, support, and show the city's gratitude and in all the work you're doing and everyone else in the committee, and again, trying to figure out the most concrete way of moving forward in an expeditious manner. Thank you, Mr. Chandler. Any questions?
And I know you would appreciate this. We were just at the marathon yesterday. Have a river run. Figure out. Bring those attention. Just do an annual event that creates interest in the river. So.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Chandler.
Thank you, Councilman.
Anybody have a public comment on item 2? Okay, seeing none. Item number 3?
Item number 3 is motion Reyes-Garcetti relative to an MOU between the city and the county flood control district to complete the LA River ecosystem restoration feasibility study.
Okay. Okay. So on the MOU here, I know that there is no. Well, Mr. Sue, would you like to just come and give us an update on where we're at with this? And I want to thank you because I know it took, well, we worked on this for 3 years, right?
Yeah, about that.
Yeah, but more or less. So we're ready to move forward on this?
Well, this MOU is, I believe, I got to double check with the county, but I believe it's already gone through the county's Board of Supervisors.
Okay,
And so now it's before us.
great. So we got the partnership set in place, the county's voted on it, so we can make a motion here to approve and move this forward.
Right. This,
Have a second on that?
Second.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ms. Sue. Again, thank you for your hard work and the rest of the staff for making this happen. Thank you, sir. All righty, item number 4.
Item number 4 is a report from the Department of Water and Power relative to its work performed to maintain the department's right-of-ways along the LA River.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Eduardo Malacon, and I'm here to provide a report of routine maintenance along the river
Okay.
for LWP property. We did our routine maintenance on February 9, 2010. We removed weed, brush clearance, and removed trash and graffiti along LA River. We are planning to go back by the end of the week, but the crews probably were going to delay that for 2 weeks. We had a problem with the DC line, 500 kV. They put it back in service. But after that, we will continue doing our routine maintenance. We only received 1 complaint about graffiti, and we went there and removed it.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, we did that. It's a short report because we do it every quarter. Also, I want to introduce Nick Demos. He will be providing the report from now on.
Very nice.
So this is my last report, I guess.
Well, thank you for your work. I know it took a while for us to get to this place, but I thank you for that. In your discussions in maintenance, preventive measures that allows these corridors, these strips to be greened, to look at another level of mitigation. Was that ever contemplated in trying to make the area more visibly pleasing? Because under many of the easements and many of these areas, it's rather, it looks abandoned. There's a barbed wire. You've got things like that. Is there ever any thought of improving its feel, its image?
Well, what we have done in areas when we try to keep vegetation growing, flowers, not flowers, but good vegetation to cover walls and that stuff to prevent graffiti from happening. We were trying to do things like that to help to prevent vandalism or.
Right. Are there specific sites that you're looking at? Is there a program that is there?
That one, Fletcher, and in that area right there, I think that one of the busiest areas.
Is there a strategy in place to continue a program like that, or is it kind of more sporadic? How are you approaching that?
At this point, we should put something in place for that. Start meeting with the crews and going through the sites and looking for.
Well, maybe I should ask Mr. Demos, since he'll be in the hot seat next time. Mr. Demos, do you see, Mr. Malacon hasn't made a reference to some of this work, but is there anything that you see in the future that we can look to, and when you come and report, you can report there's a progress being made that deals with how we soften these corridors and easements along the riverway?
Yeah. I'm Nick Demas, Water and Power. I have not been on the job for quite a long time, for very long, and we can look into it when we get back. I know it's mainly a maintenance purpose right now. What we're doing is maintaining and beautifying the area, but I'm just not aware of a plan.
But there are approaches to make the place a little bit more inviting and less sterile and less industrial that can function as a maintenance program that is a preventive measure. So when you look at treatments of these corridors, instead of a bunch of weeds and glass and bottles and debris, you have something that's cleaned up and it looks nice, and you don't have to be pulling weeds as much. These are very basic strategies that perhaps you could explore.
Yes, we can take it back to the office, explore, and discuss it amongst the staff.
Maybe we can do a motion or something, Councilmember Labange, but I guess you get the feel for what we're expecting from Dupont Water and Power. They've been great partners. Without them, we don't fund the master plan. Let's be real explicit about that. But there's also the continuous presence of what you do manage and what you do control, and there's higher expectations of what should be there. So that would be the direction. I'm hoping you could see we're going, so that way you can be proactive in how we get to those types of environments that make it much friendlier and attractive, so that people want to be along that corridor. And that would be the direction we would hopefully you will take. Thank you, Mr. Demos. And sir, thank you for your hard work. I know it was a cultural shift for you to come here and say, well, why should we have to do this? And thank you for coming on board and doing the work that you've done.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I do want to acknowledge Mr. Mitchell Farrell, who at the beginning brought us to a place where we needed to have this kind of attention from Dupont Water Power and Councilman Garcetti's office. So thank you, sir, for your advocacy as well. Any questions for them, Councilman?
Yes, Marvin Moon's still another item? Are you on the same item?
Item 6.
6?
Yeah, they're coming up. They're coming up fast.
All right, good. Did you guys ride over together?
Yes, we did.
Maybe you could take 6 just because you could then ride back together.
Okay. Are you guys sharing rides or no?
We do a carpool.
Okay, well, anybody here let me just finish this item. Anybody here for public comment on that, on number 4? Okay, so again, we look forward to the quarterly report from Dupont Water and Power on their maintenance, and I thank you for that. So hopefully we'll come back with that report.
Councilman Marvin Moon, Water and Power. Question on the thing you just asked about on the right-of-ways, looking for something a little more aesthetically pleasing.
Right.
Is there someone that we could work with, either in the council office or with the River Committee, to identify areas that would be higher priority?
Okay.
Areas that seem to be, the places
Yeah.
everybody goes to.
Yes,
Would be
let's set up that meeting, and then we can speak with the other council offices, and we'll pull together, maybe a set of priorities
That'd be great.
and locations, and they'll help kind of structure the attention.
That'd be fantastic.
Okay. Okay. Seeing no one for item number 4, we expect that quarter report again, and again, thank you for that. Item number 5, real quick.
I'm sorry, Councilmember, before you move to the next item, do you wish to notify what you have before you?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, item number 5. I think they're going to wait for each other.
You're going to wait for each other? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Item number 5.
All right, then item number 5 is a verbal update from various city departments relative to progress made in relation to the LA River access and uses.
Okay. So could we have we have the safety policing and marking security. So we do have fire department here, I believe, and police department. Come on up, police and fire. I think we have general services as well. You grab you a chair. You want to grab this one? You guys mind shifting? There you go. Okay. I'd like to start from LAPD.
Good afternoon. I'm Commander George Villegas. I'm the Assistant Commanding Officer of Operations Valley Bureau. For the remainder of this deployment period, beginning on March 28th, I'll be the Assistant to the Director, Office of Operations.
Congratulations, Commander.
Oh, thank you. So I'm getting up to speed with all the issues with respect to the river. I have to my left Lieutenant Tim Torsney. Tim Torsney is the primary researcher from the Office of Operations with respect to the findings and the recommendations. And then also to my left is Captain Bill Murphy, and he's been intimate in terms of aspects of everything that we're going to be talking about in terms of the river. The police department is very supportive of this effort. We think it's important for the city, so we want to be a partner and a participant in this entire process. But we do have some findings, some recommendations. There's going to be some costs associated to it in terms of personnel resources deployment, and so we have some recommendations for the committee.
Okay.
I'm Captain Bill Murphy, Commanding Officer, Northeast.
Welcome, sir.
Let me go over, first of all, kind of the purpose when we began looking at this, and I have about 2 years of experience with the river. When I first came into Northeast, I was, Mitch O'Farrell kind of drafted me into it, and then I went to many meetings and was part of it. And then Office of Operations got involved, which they should, because it goes to actually 8 different geographic areas or police stations throughout Valley Bureau and also throughout Central Bureau, Northeast just being one of them. But we do recommend that General Services Police Department continues to be primary giver of police services there. We will certainly continue to be supportive of it and augment them. We do that right now. That's the setup that is occurring on a day-to-day basis. We are out there on random patrols, and our senior lead officers are certainly out there and working with the community, so that's important. We believe that the projects, with a potential of 200 projects, will certainly increase public access to the river. And to prepare for this particular ad hoc committee, we did do an assessment with members of your staff, Councilmember Reyes. You may have been there yourself, I'm not exactly sure, but members of the police department, the fire department, and Bureau of Engineering. And we also looked at the engineering plans just to identify some findings and potential challenges that you might want to be aware of from a public safety perspective. These are, let me share a few of those. One is that obviously vehicle or motorized access should be greatly restricted to there. We talked about the bike paths and that type of thing is what we want to encourage. For us, patrols down there, that what will work best will be bicycles and also footbeats. We do have T3s, which would probably work very well. You obviously supported a couple for Northeast, so that would be an ideal type of supplement to General Services Police. First responders should be considered that they may have to abandon vehicles in certain parts if they have to go down there, depending upon where it may be, and walk on foot there. So just know that. And that could also lead to situations, especially if it's the fire department, a little bit slower response from a medical perspective, again, depending upon where it may be. There's a potential from ecological or geographic features of what may be designed down there that could lend itself to criminal activity. It really all depends if additional trees and different things like that. We can look at that. One of our recommendations is that we work with city planners, so we have be able to give insight to that and say, hey, in this particular area, we'll know the crime patterns and issues, so we give good advice on that to reduce that type of.
If I may ask, Captain, the association with, and this goes back to the human factor of the homeless population.
Yes.
And how that is interactive with design and or with safety issues. Were you able to address that to an extent?
Yes. I think it's very important, with the homeless, when they go down there, is more in the bushes. Sometimes there are certain particular areas that they hang out in. In the course of maybe beautifying it, you could actually add to that those type of activities. But I think we can make that dramatically reduced if we're part of the planning for it. So okay. I'm not as worried about it. We just got to be part of that process. So.
Right. Is there a ballpark figure in terms of how many are we talking about?
Like a survey for homeless down there?
Has anyone ever ventured to?
Not that I know of. We do work with PATH, which is a homeless provider. We'll go out there, we'll do surveys within Northeast area, and unless somebody knows that exact answer. We'll go out there and we'll identify where they are and we get them services. But I'm not sure if there's been one exactly on the river, particularly through 8 different LAPD divisions or areas. I don't know if anybody else has. George, have you?
No. I'm not aware that we've actually done any survey to actually count the actual number of homeless from the beginning to the end of the river project.
Because for every action there's a reaction. So when we start making changes and influencing how we look at these design issues and start moving folks out, and the more we see, the more we're going to need in terms of being able to respond to that activity if we're going to start displacing. Because I know when I ride along the river and or walk it, I will see homeless encampments, and we do call in LAZA, and we call in as many groups as we can to help them out. But that is a long stretch, and we do see quite a bit of people there, and especially in these trying times. My assumptions are it's only going to get worse. So.
And we could definitely look into that. We'd have to organize through Office of Operations because it's a long amount of real estate, but that could be done. Other ones, we obviously need a marker system along the riverways so that for public safety we'd be able to put a broadcast out with know roughly where we'd be.
You did a motion.
Has a marker system.
Yeah, we could do.
We're looking for it.
Looking for
it's
it.
There.
It's not.
If you call Albion over at 56, he'll tell you where it is.
One section, one little area.
Right, okay, all right.
That's just in that little slip.
We definitely have to expand on that, though, so that we do it.
Similar to what you do for hydrants. You got to do it on the river. Not you need hydrants, but they mark boxes or squares in Griffith Park in zones to give a call at where it is. So I guess we possibly could talk to fire department mapping to see if they could do that.
How familiar, besides that area, though, how familiar is everybody with that mapping system? And those markers?
Well, I think the police department could be familiar with it.
Well, yeah, they could be.
Yeah, but I think that's all. We're citizens. We're taught to know where the street address is, and that's about all we could do. But if you're in Griffith Park, you say if you're a ranger or a police officer, where it is, maybe it's something could be discussed as you go forward.
But I think, without question, we could develop one, and both the fire department, ourselves, general services, we all agree. But I don't believe all the 32 miles has that right now. So that's something we need to look at. A couple other findings. Okay, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, the other issue is the citizens that are going to be actually calling in for services that are going to be in there. I think that's a key. Is when someone's in need of a service that's of an emergency nature, that they have something to mark to be a characteristic for them so that we can respond, both police and fire.
Okay.
A couple other findings, and I'll get into recommendations, but obviously the interest in the public, if it becomes a big home run, which we all hope it will be, and draw the public in there, that could create some traffic issues that we need to pay attention to. And also, if you do bring in a lot of public, it could increase calls for service and so on and so forth for that. Here are some recommendations. We do want to develop the marking system. We'll work with the fire department on that. We do recommend maybe in high traffic areas or parks along there that you may consider camera systems in there. They've proven to be effective in other areas. You may want to put emergency call boxes along the way. The fire department, I know I read their report. They have it in there at a quarter to half a mile, I believe. You might want to put some lighting in there for during the winter time. It gets darker at 4 o'clock, and maybe a lighting system that's activated by first responders, so not necessarily the public. So
Right.
in that particular area, you definitely want postage signage that gives hours of operation, and maybe rules in any park that you have no alcohol and that type of stuff. Securable gates, you do have that now. We got to make sure that they are functioning in any access to the riverway. Also, private security, you should consider that. We'll get into costing on officers, but it's very expensive if you look at an officer roughly around $93 an hour, versus you could probably get a security guard that there is regularly used in a bid system like downtown for maybe a little over $15 an hour. It could help supplement general services. And again, what I had mentioned before, consultation between city planners and the LAPD and the fire department about any issues that could be like crime prevention type issues, where we could give them advice on decreasing the likelihood of crime in the area.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else from the LAPD? Okay. The fire department?
Rick Denning, I'm with the Urban Search and Rescue Unit out in the Valley, representing the Disaster Preparedness Section and the Swiftwater Rescue Teams, basically. And I understand the excitement that's involved with this, maybe because I'm fairly new to the committee and been here for a couple of rounds. Unfortunately, as we've talked about it, is we've been telling people for 20 years to stay out. So when I heard the quote not too long ago about people very negative towards the river, I can understand part of that through public service announcements, and every time we have some type of an issue, we're telling and warning people about the river. So it is changing the tide of the public's perception as to what can be done here. So in our respect, we still have a lot of safety concerns.
Right.
In the last ad hoc committee, I went over a number of safety concerns and issues that, and again, it can be scalable based on what I'm listening to, some of it being everything from bike paths to river access. And from the many issues with river access is where our main concerns come in. But I'd like to go through some of those. The lack of lifeguards or patrols, and I don't want to go through the associated costs right now, just to try to give you an idea. Lack of a notification system to alert emergency responders, as we talked about. No identifiers to denote the location, and that's where we kind of discuss this. It's okay for us to kind of have an idea where we are, but it's the public that really needs to have that identifier that's clear. If they make that cell phone call that has no attachment to a 911 system, to know exactly where they are. Our current dispatch policy only denotes the street names, same issue. A lack of an alert system to evacuate the river for flooding or any kind of imminent danger. Lack of public information and education, just basically for their knowledge as a whole in general. Our current Swiftwater teams are basically pre-deployed only on anticipated rainfall right now. The LAFD would have to be trained in specific areas to provide for safety on a 24/7 basis if that's what we're heading towards. And those allied agencies providing patrol with interests along the river would be providing first responder training also. This doesn't have to always be the fire department that be doing this patrol. This could be a civilian-based type of a warning system also, and along with possible patrol people. And there's a lot of associated costs along with that to try to bring this up to speed so that we have a good education system, a good notification system, and then obviously the access and rescue possibilities that can happen along our side, that we can be there for them in a timely fashion. We talked about quarter to maybe half mile using everything from markers to even the old call box system. We heard some negative portion of the call box system saying, why would we go to that? And it's an instant tag to our dispatch as to where they are. So needing to know what that marker says, or not needing to know exactly where they are, we know exactly where they are. So that helps us tremendously. And they have solar-powered ones now. I've seen different ones, and obviously we don't have the background knowledge on those, but there's different ways to attach that. That might be a better system than just the marker system itself.
Right. And as has been mentioned before, God forbid there's a disaster. I suppose Dr. Armstrong mentioned that this is one of the few infrastructural opportunities to deal with moving large numbers of people.
Right.
During the dry season, of course.
Right.
But it has that capacity. It's one of the places where you don't have to go through neighborhoods because it's already laid out for you. So I think how we design and look at these issues, we should have that in the back of our minds too.
Absolutely.
But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's fine. Like I said, without getting into associated costs, I think we're in concert with the LAPD and some of those concerns and issues. And obviously, from a rescue standpoint, we have a little bit different direction, but the same notification system issues that come in hand.
But I sense optimism in your voice and the message that, yes, 20 years we had one message, but perhaps in shifting.
I'm trying.
Okay, all right. Okay, he's smiling. That's good. And General Services?
I'm Frank Pazazes with Office of Public Safety and also do security technology for General Services. Behalf of our police, whatever we need to take on from responsibility in the parks for patrols, adding the different parks to our patrols, and obviously response we'll be happy to do. And then from a security technology element, whatever we can to be able to use that as a force multiplier. I know I looked at a lot of the concerns that there were up at Los Feliz as far as the bike paths and copper theft and lighting issues. So combination of that and putting in video cameras and call boxes and video analytics to be able to know when there are people there that shouldn't be there, or determine when people are in trouble, people are congregating. We could certainly do all of that.
But given the summary of what's being said, and perhaps if one of you can respond, how we approach Homeland Security funds, I mean, there is a link here in terms of how we deal with the overall safety of the city should there be a disaster. I mean, that's, again, another observation made by our staff. And how we looked at the Homeland Security resource as an approach to build in this infrastructure, or is that something that you would encourage? It's a conversation I have with Chief Beck and the mayor, but it's something that I think we need to be opportunistic with that whole dynamic of how we move large numbers of people at one time or to safe areas should there be a disaster.
I think there are some components in place that lend itself to the current philosophy of the UOSI funding for Homeland Security. If you start getting into the local area where we're combining Long Beach into it, I don't know if that's part of this program or not, but that's one of the elements that they really look for, and then to be able to move large quantities of people and all that. So there are some applications where potentially it would have to be, I think, kind of massaged a little bit, but I think there's definitely the possibility for it.
Okay, thank you. Councilman, any questions?
Yeah, I just want to say, first of all, thank the General Service Police. You you recovered a vehicle with a baby in it in Beechwood on Holly Ridge the other day. Hollywood Division had something, and you guys were coming out of Mount Lee or whatever.
Right.
So the teamwork was very important. It was a great compliment from the Hollywood Patrol Captain to General Services, and I talked to Tony Royster, so I just want to say that publicly.
Thank you.
On the issue here is we had a bikeway, and we had it all lit from the Hyperion Bridge from Fletcher Drive all the way, and got tremendous theft on there, theft of city property, and it's $1 million. It's sitting there not lit right now. We should look to water and power, Mr. Moon, on solar panel street lighting, somehow out there, because they're not going to steal. There's no copper wire connecting those. It's something should be looked at in that aspect of it, too. And also the other thing, too, it is who's responsible for closing the gate when it's raining?
At all parks, it's been pretty much General Services.
The river.
Park closure.
The river.
Right.
You're responsible for closing the gate at Hyperion?
Yes.
If there's rain?
Yes. It's a combination of General Services Police and an occasion in Griffith Park, park rangers.
The issue sometimes is the maintenance of that is by DOT or by street services. Who cleans the bikeway?
I'm not sure on that.
You know, so there's a lot of jurisdictions there other than just the ones who build it. But as we go forward, there should be one. I would think, though, yeah, Murphy, if there was I always felt a bike unit out of Northeast be a great job. Just go out San Fernando Road, go down Fletcher.
Oh, no, they do that. I guess the issue would be we couldn't dedicate them constantly. There's so many missions we give them. But
Right.
you're right. I mean, it's made for bikes. It's perfect. But
Right.
I just can't keep them there every day.
Yeah, there is a platoon of Los Angeles police officers just on the river, Mr. Reyes, of Metropolitan Division, who do ride their horses or who do engage when there's anything there, but it's more like they're in the vicinity. It's like a good neighbor to have.
Yeah.
So they could look at that. But I think all to the future, what we compliment, you could say that it may be general services that would be the ideal target to look at because they could do this. You see this role there. And I think a lot of people, I don't know if we ever got a count, but there's a lot of people who find that way to find, without any family or friends, to find themselves living along the banks, and they survive whatever the conditions are, but then they're gone for a while. You don't know where they go. So it's just that constant challenge that you have to deal with it. And then for river rescue, because I know we had a couple river rescues where people were living on an island on the river by the Hyperion Bridge, and then the waters came. So it's all challenging, and it is a message, too, they always to stay away when it's rapid. It is a fast river. Is this a true statement? I want to ask this statement. There's doctors here, doctors in the house, right, still? Yeah, doctor. Is the Los Angeles River have a higher elevation drop than the Mississippi?
The Corps of the Army Corps of Engineers has told us that it accomplishes the same slope change as the Mississippi, and it's 51 miles as the Mississippi does, and it's 2,200 miles.
Right. So that whatever the sea level is in New Orleans, it's not that much higher up in Minnesota, wherever where's the top of Minnesota? You know, so that's a fascinating thought to think there's this 51-mile drop, which means that's a greater speed, the speed of the Los Angeles. The first time it rained this year, I went up on Main Street, and it was unbelievably fast. You know, so fast. So once you're in it, you're in it. Captain Cunningham was the commander at Northeast Division. It was a long weekend, Mr. Reyes. And I called him right on Friday, and I said, hey, there's a stolen car. It's underneath Los Feliz Boulevard. Can you get it out? And it was a long weekend, and by Tuesday, I called him, and I thanked him because it was gone. And he said, Tom, I'm an honest policeman. I got to let you know, it's Maywood's problem now.
I didn't want to ask. All right. Councilmember Labange, that was on the record? Okay.
That was last century, so I think statutes of limitations.
All right, thank you.
He's long since retired.
That's great. Well, I want to thank you for preparing this information. Your insight is invaluable. As you can see, entities like the corporation and others are trying to put together a strategy that we can move forward, and it happens working lockstep with the notion of public safety and flood control. So I'm looking forward to working with you as we continue moving. As you know, we're working with the county and perhaps combining resources under one entity to secure the river is a strategy we should consider. And the information that we can gather as we meet with the county will give us the ability to see how we can leverage this rather demanding feat, but I think it's something that's very necessary to add confidence to the general public. So I'm hoping we can see a finalized report by May in terms of the work you're doing, and then continue working together between now and May. Any other? Okay. Are you comfortable with that?
Sure.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let me ask the next group of city family members. Mr. Chandler, come on up.
I just want to make a public.
Come on up. Just introduce yourself, Mr. Chandler.
This is Harry Chandler, Chairman of the River Revitalization Corporation. Since we talked in my presentation about public safety issues and liability, I just wanted to ask the three departments that we just heard from, let me give you business cards, and as we look at messaging for the usage of the river, I'd love to have a representative from each of your departments help us refine that messaging so that the people who are using the river today see what your recommendations are for that usage. So,
Great idea, Mr. Chandler. Very well done.
And if someone could call, before the agencies, call the biggest city on the Mississippi. I don't know which it is, St. Louis. See what they do. Just see what other cities do.
Okay. Can we call Recreation Parks, CLA, and City Attorney? We can have a verbal on your recommendations relating to maintenance. Are you guys here? Okay. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Daryl Ford from the Department of Recreation and Parks. I'll be brief. The staff from the Department of Recreation and Parks, along with staff from the LA River Project Office and members of the city family, have been meeting with the county to discuss many of the issues you just talked about, some of the security issues, the maintenance issues in and around the river. One of the things that we have been discussing is the possibility of a river master use agreement, which would capture a lot of these issues, the maintenance issue, potentially some of the security issues, and some of those operational issues as well. So those meetings are ongoing. We do meet on a monthly basis, and we hope through that kind of meeting with the county to come to some sort of consensus on really what a master use agreement should contain and will contain, and then from there to talk about what agencies or what agency or organization would be responsible for those maintenance and operations issues going forward into the future.
Has been any work with the CLA and the city attorney in that effort as well?
The city attorney staff has been involved. I can't really speak to the extent of the involvement of the CLA and the CAO, but
were they asked to be here, the city attorney?
They haven't responded.
Okay. All right. I guess we need to submit something for legal. Never mind. Okay. How about CLA?
Charles Modic with the CLA's office. We've worked with all the departments that have presented so far and your office, and we'll continue to do so to make sure that the wishes of the council office and the council are reflected in what they're reporting and try to help you guys achieve your aims.
And when the report comes back in May 2010, maybe we could have yourself working along with the other departments to create some uniformity in how we respond and making sure we're working out from the same page.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
And last but not least, I'd like to call up Dupont Water and Power. Anybody from sanitation here or Bureau of Engineering? So, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, council members.
I don't think they're on 6 yet. They're still doing 5.
Also.
We're doing 5 right now, right? Okay. So this is representative of the Wiser Committee, right? We're looking at the watershed infiltration for supply and environmental restoration and the process of looking at how we streamline river projects. Might as well stay up here. We'll go 6 next. Okay. Come on up. So my assumptions are that we do have a group of folks. Everybody's eager to answer this question. Who wants to start?
Andy Nick Knaps, I'm with Los Angeles Water and Power, representing the Wiser Committee.
Okay.
We have met several times. As you know, the Wiser Committee is consisted of member agencies like Bureau of Engineering, Bureau of Sanitation, City Planning, and Rec and Parks, the Mayor's Office, this ad hoc committee representatives, and DWP. And we have set goals, we have established goals as far as improving coordinations between various city departments and reducing peak flow to the river, and also reevaluating the city-owned properties that we can make use of them for water capturing and recharging, and also ensuring projects that incorporate job outreach programs and sustainable benefits to local communities. And we are...
Can you speak into the microphone? They can hear you better.
And we are planning to meet again as far as our future benchmarks for the Wiser Committee is to develop a purpose statement for the committee and also identify and create a master list for the city department projects that are along the river and contribute to the flow of the river. So in a nutshell, this is what the committee has been doing.
And we've come a long way, haven't we?
Yes, we started back in April of last year.
Great. I mean, to be able to have that connectivity between the different departments and to be working on the same page is in of itself a real milestone. But to get to the place where we're actually coordinating the streamline is something we're looking forward to. Anything else you'd like to answer? Please introduce.
Andy pretty much covered everything.
He covered everything. Yes. That's why he's part of the wiser committee. Dr. Armstrong, anything else?
No, we're just very excited. Before they were actually directed to do so, the Department of Water and Power started holding these meetings. And so we are excited about the possibility of it because it's looking at the watershed, 870 square miles. And as you know, there's a lot of attention in Sacramento on what we can do in the upstream watershed of the LA River. So, yay.
But also from a competitive point of view, it puts us in a stronger place to compete for federal funds, for state funds. This city has to find a way to make itself stronger when it's competing on a national level. It's the second largest city in the country, and yet we are very weak when it comes to how we bring money back from the federal government to the city, and that's something that has to change if we're going to maintain levels of jobs and leverage what opportunities we do have in this great city. So it behooves everyone that we continue creating this laser beam focus because it makes us much more competitive in the long run. And we should be getting our just due in terms of what we deserve as a city, given all the monies we pump into the federal government. So I appreciate, and it's invaluable what you're doing because we do deserve that kind of funding. Councilmember LaBonge, anything else?
Yeah, is Mr. Moon going to speak?
Okay, he's next. He's next. Okay, so
Let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
With water and power, you know, what about some nice water fountains along the river? In Portland, they got these water fountains along the river. It's something to think about.
Yep.
You know, so be a good idea.
Yep.
Have you thought about that yet?
Not yet.
See, now you
We
got
will.
an idea today. All right, good.
Thank you, Councilman LaBonge. So if I can ask this group to come up with specific goals and deliverables for the next committee, we'll try to get all this great effort into something tangible we can see in the context of specific goals and deliverables. All right? Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right, the big drum roll for number 6. Okay, Mr. Moon.
Just read the item.
Fourth visit to the table. Come on up.
Item number 6 is Department of Water and Power report relative to undergrounding existing overhead transmission lines that are along the LA River.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Marvin Moon at Water and Power. The committee asked Water and Power to look at the existing overhead lines to see if just general overview of feasibility to put them underground. And we generated a report called The Conversion of Existing Overhead Transmission Lines Along Los Angeles River to Underground Transmission Lines. I trust you folks have this.
Yes.
No, I don't have it.
Oh, we have an extra copy.
Thanks a lot.
Sorry about that.
I brought with me one of the authors of this document, Mr. Vince Kersey, who's in charge of underground transmission design, to mention the highlights and a few of the issues.
Please.
Okay, I'm Vince Kersey. I'm in charge of underground transmission design, and I'll give a brief summary of the report we provided to underground existing overhead transmission lines along the LA River. We studied a 24-mile line section that starts at the intersection of the 710 freeway and the 105 freeway, and it proceeds north-west to the 134 freeway and at East Olive Avenue, which is at Forest Lawn Cemetery. Again, it's 24 miles long. There are 7 distinct overhead line segments along this path, and some have 3 lines, some have as many as 5 lines. And the overhead lines cross through the city of Paramount, Southgate, Bell Garden, City of Commerce, Bell, Vernon, and Los Angeles. Some of the issues that we face in undergrounding, for one, is the width of the available right-of-way at some locations, and additionally, the department only owns 10% of these right-of-way. The other 90% are owned by easements, which will need to be renegotiated when we convert from overhead to underground. So the alignment will take will make use of available existing right-of-way and also public streets along this 24-mile section. A full environmental impact report will be required, plus permits will be required by the affected communities. And our proposal is based in installing 2 underground lines for every overhead line. This allows us to maintain what we call the N-1 system reliability criteria, and so we can meet the current rating of the existing overhead lines, plus allow for maintenance and repair flexibility. The cost of undergrounding this 24-mile portion is about $1.1 billion. And this does not include the cost of purchasing additional land if required, and the cost of additional power system equipment to integrate the underground lines in our power systems. Additionally, a system planning study will be required to study the electrical aspects of undergrounding the lines, and we can report on that at the next meeting. Although technically feasible from a construction point of view, we will need to study the electrical implications of the conversion. And we estimate that it will take approximately 7 years for the environmental studies, engineering, procurement, and construction to complete this project. And one last point I would like to make, that anytime we underground, we convert overhead facilities to underground facilities, there's a loss of reliability and also there's a loss of flexibility to the power system in terms of making future upgrades, carrying more current, increasing the voltage. Overhead lines are very simple to upgrade, whereas cables are not that simple in making changes. And that's pretty much I have to say.
Are there any parts of the city where it is underground?
Yes, we have approximately 150 miles of underground lines in the city.
And the same power lines, you're saying?
The same power lines at 138,000 volts and 230,000 volts.
And what prompted those areas to have it underground?
That was prompted by the lack of available right-of-way. So when we do not have a corridor, overhead corridor available, then the only option that we have is to underground. So in urbanized area, residential areas, for example, where there is not available land for us to use for transmission towers and overhead conductors, of course, we go underground.
So it is possible to do it in sections?
It is possible to do underground in section, yes.
Okay, so
there are two of these sections are within the city of Los Angeles fully, and the other five sections we looked at are outside the city.
Right. So when we look at strategic approach and how we do this incrementally, if you look at the Arbor study, for example, there is a section we can approach that allows us to do it, that in of itself can generate other revenue generating possibilities for the city to offset those costs. And so that is possible.
Yes, undergrounding sections individually, yes, it is possible.
Okay, so if our studies and looking at your analysis, section 3 from downtown to the 110, it's about 4 miles. That's about $108 million.
Yes, there is a table in the report that shows
Right.
shows the cost of.
So if you look at the Councilman Labange's area, look at Glendale Boulevard, 110 to Glendale Boulevard, that's 5 miles, about $136 million.
That's correct.
Then we have section 5, Glendale to Griffith, 4.5 miles, about $189 million.
Correct.
Okay, so when we look at this comprehensively, at 1 point whatever billion you said is a hard price tag to swallow.
It is.
Okay, and so I'm not suggesting we do that, but it gives us a context to work with.
That's correct.
That's correct.
And so if we look at the strategy of the master plan and how the city family has been moving forward, it is conceivable to underground these cables if you overlay the surrounding CRA corridors that are being analyzed. When you look at increased property values that could happen,
That's right.
When you look at increased investment, when you look at the benefit of what open space can do at all the different issues of the ecology, there are driving reasons to consider this.
Yes.
Would that be accurate?
That's true.
That's true.
Okay. Again, I just don't want you give us a sobering report because it's realistic. You're telling us what the parameters you have to work with, and I think it's up to us to figure out, okay, how do we follow the path of least resistance to make it happen, looking at all the advantages of moving down that pathway that allows us to underground these lines, because then it adds to the whole environment of creating a place for people to gather and to stimulate the economy the way we think we can, if we can achieve our goals. Councilman Labange, any questions?
Yeah, I just think when you go transmission, like I was looking at the river the other day, this transmission comes into Main Street.
We have a receiving station
Right.
at Main
How
Street.
much
Receiving
power
station.
is up there?
Receiving station A, Main Street. I believe it's in the order of about 300 megawatts of power that come into receiving station A.
Does DWP get a bill for the power they use? Like, does Main Street get a bill?
I'm not sure.
It is metered, but I don't think anyone's paying the bill internally.
Right, I just want to know. I just get a bill. Someone asked that question today, so they were surprised because they never thought of that question, but I thought it's a question to ask. How much transmission comes from that station? Where do you go, over to West LA for the next transmission?
Well, we have stations all over the city. We have
Right, but for big power like that, the only thing you have the Hollywood line that comes, Whitnall Highway comes across the valley, comes down into Griffith Park. That's the 134 by the cemetery. Then it comes down the river.
Right.
Goes into G at Fletcher.
G.
Yep.
Then
And then it continues down the river.
it continues down the river. It goes to river switching station. Then goes to receiving station F.
Which is where?
Receiving station F is on. It's just on Olympic and.
In the center city, right?
Yeah, it's on east Los Angeles.
Right,
Yeah,
on the east side, the center city.
right.
So most of this is not, have we ever had a massive burial of this transmission? Other than the redevelopment of downtown, meaning from the post-20s period where they put transmission underneath the ground?
No, we have not had a conversion of an overhead line to an underground line in the last 25 years. So
This is 220 right here, right?
that's 120 volts.
120 volts. What's if this is if I'm above the river right now in Griffith Park, what is that? How many volts?
It's 230,000 volts.
230,000
volts.
230,000 volts.
Yeah.
So that one of the challenges they have, Ed, we just got to realize, for those who do the work on that, it's very dangerous to be in a confined area with that type of power, correct? They like to be outside a little bit, have a little more space?
There are, for overhead lines, we have determined clearances for safe work procedures
Right.
that you have to maintain. Otherwise, there could be a flashover from the line to the person. You know.
Right.
So
it's not as easy as just burying them. You got to really be. It's a tremendous. But like
but
you
for
said,
underground
Ed,
cables,
now we got a parameter. Now we got a report. Now we can look at something.
Well, for underground cables, you can be right next to it and touch it, and nothing happens.
Nothing happens?
No, nothing will happen.
Okay. All right, great, Vince. Thank you.
Okay,
You're welcome, Tom.
I first want to thank the Department for this report because it gives us a lot of substance to work with and how we can approach these issues in a manner that's safe, but also in a manner that's doable. And I think that's what we needed to find out, is get to that place where we can be more confident that this could happen. And with this report, I feel very confident that we can get to that goal, knowing that we want to be safe about it and more efficient with our system. Any public comment on this item? Would you like to come on up? Just come on the microphone.
It's Harry Chandler from the River Revitalization Corp again. As you go underground, I'm just wondering out loud, is there development opportunities once you're underground for the easement that you've purchased above that we might want to consider? So questions to you are, what's the width of the easement that you need? And as you think about both the percentage of land that DWP already owns and the land that you talk that you'd have to get easement for, can you imagine that there are above-ground development opportunities that we could partner on?
The maximum width that we would need is about 70 feet, where we have 5 overhead transmission lines. There is a minimum spacing that we would like to have between the underground lines. That's about 10 feet spacing. Plus, we need some additional spacing on the edge of the other right-of-way. So that works
10 feet in depth.
No, the depth is about 4 to 7 feet.
4 to
But
7?
in between lines, we have a spacing about 10 feet.
I got you.
So the minimum right-of-way width would be about 70 feet.
Minimum or maximum?
Minimum.
Minimum.
Minimum, 70 feet. Okay. And once the lines are placed underground, that limits the type and of development that can be done over the lines, because the department needs access to those lines in the event that there is what we call in industry a breakdown or failure. We need to go there and fix it.
Mm-hmm.
So
is that continual access, or could there be a building and then 100 feet open, and then, I mean, is it, what kind of access do you need relative to development?
normally we do not allow any type of building above underground lines, because we need access to the line in its entirety.
So the type of uses that are appropriate would be like a parking lot or
open
driveways
Driveway,
or
park,
grass field, grass areas.
Grass, yeah. But not any type of structure,
no
no.
structures.
Because if there's a problem at that point, we will have to go there and remove that structure to get access to the system.
If you were going to replace the ones on the river, you'd want to replace them right on top of the bikeway, right there on the bank, right? Because you own that easement.
Or we can use adjacent city streets, depending on the width of the right of way at that point. It would make more sense to use adjacent city streets, which are dedicated, and then you can use your right of way for other issues. But the problem being is that once we're outside the right of way, then we'll need permits from the local cities, and sometimes that may be difficult to get.
Right.
To get, yeah.
But I think where we're starting is what we control.
That's correct.
And we'll learn from there.
That's correct, yeah.
I hear you. Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chandler.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we'll note and file this report. And I see no other public comment. I do want to, apologize on item 5. We'll be asking those that were reporting on sections 4 to 5 if we can do a verbal, and we'll hear you on the next meeting. And that would be the folks who are here for item number 5. And lastly, I do want to ask CR if they'd like to come on up and give us a report. I kind of, in my quest to be quicker, I jumped over a couple of departments, but I apologize, Mr. Spivak, for all your hard work, and I want to thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is for item number 1. Sure. Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Yes, Don Spivak from the Redevelopment Agency. In addition to what we're doing with the corporation right now.
I'm sorry, Councilman Labange exists. I want to thank you, sir, for your commitment and your support for this committee.
Yes.
Mr. Spivak.
Yes, we did want to give you a brief update on our redevelopment analysis. I'd like to ask Allison Becker from our staff to make that presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Spivak. For the record, my name is Allison Becker. I'm the Associate Planner for the Hollywood region. I'm coordinating the necessary studies that the Redevelopment Agency is conducting to investigate the feasibility of a new redevelopment project along the LA River in Northeast Los Angeles. These actions were, just to remind you, authorized by the City Council in the late spring of last year. The study area is approximately 2,300 acres, including streets and other rights of way, and overlaps with the neighborhoods of Atwater Village, Cypress Park, Glassell Park, and Elysian Valley. We are basically at the point currently where we've finalized our due diligence in-house and are evaluating requests for proposals for our consultants who will conduct the formal analysis necessary to prepare a new redevelopment plan. Approximately 3,200 people live within the study area. The average median household income is slightly lower than the median for the city of Los Angeles at $31,000. Approximately 24% of households live below the poverty line, and Renters make up 64% of the population. Wow. In terms of educational attainment, approximately 56% of the adult population does not have a high school education. And as a result, or maybe not as a result, but as a correlation, nearly a third of Northeast Los Angeles study area residents work within the service industry. So one of our strategies is really focused on developing sound land use and economic development strategies to build jobs for people who live in this area. This summer, basically, we're going to be talking to people. As of next month, we're going to have a small outreach and engagement team that are going to get out into the neighborhoods and make presentations to local groups, administer an opinion survey.
Is this where we hold on to our hats?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, we'll be just introducing ourselves and letting people know what we're doing and encouraging them to tell us what they think is working in the area and what they think the area needs. Okay. This is really designed to help us formulate our programs and activities to develop the work program and implementation plan that will be part of the redevelopment plan when it's adopted. Okay. We hope to undertake most of this work in 2011 and by 2011 and bring something forward to the Planning Commission and the City Council at that time.
I say this with a sense of trepidation, but eminent domain, how is that being treated? Because I know that's going to be the first question we get.
The Redevelopment Agency, for some time, consistent with state law, has decided not to pursue eminent domain on any property where someone legally resides. Will not.
Will not. Okay.
Will not.
Okay, I want to say that 3 times because I know the first thing that's going to happen is they're going to take away our homes. Yeah. You're going to eliminate, and it's basically scorched earth policy where you burn out all these existing and resisting residents, but will not use eminent domain.
No, this is not the concept behind this proposed redevelopment plan and project area is that we recognize that the city of Los Angeles and the communities along the river have spent many years planning for their futures, and yet the marketplace on its own has been not adequately incented to come in and do the type of development that communities desire. Okay. And so by adding a series of economic development tools to support the community's vision for the revitalization of the LA River and communities around it, the focus of the project would not be about housing development per se, although clearly there has been a desire in the planning by community members to provide transitional housing for the formerly homeless, for example, and those would be the types of projects that that we could support. But this is really a project that would be focused on infrastructure development and on land use and industrial development that would support the jobs base, which was lost when the last wave of manufacturing jobs left the area.
Right, and this could be a package that could be essentially advertised and or built to support groups like the River Corporation when you talk about incentives.
That's correct.
Okay. Every council office will be alerted when we start going public?
I have had the privilege of working closely with the 3 elected offices and their staff, and we just recently briefed all staff from elected offices on our outreach and engagement strategy. We've also reviewed our promotional materials, and we've been basically given the go-ahead to move forward.
Okay. We'll still hang on to our hats. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for that. Anything else, Mr. Spivak? Okay. I'll say Councilman Spivak. All right. So I believe we've public comment on any of this. Seeing none. I do want to make 2 announcements. One is we have the Riverside Roundabout Design meeting on March 25th. What that is, the intersection where the Riverside Bridge lands onto Figueroa and San Fernando Road. We're designing a roundabout to make it much more inviting and consistent with the new bridge design. It'll be a landmark that essentially celebrates the presence of the river and it towards that softening of the image of the corridor as well. And then on April 1st, we're going to have a river and rail symposium, LA River and high-speed rail. Friend or foe? No, just kidding. It is going to be a symposium to discuss the concerns, opportunities, and hopefully we can get ideas for mitigation and get a clear picture of where the state is going with the high-speed rail and how it impacts the corridor. So that happens on April 1st. And where is that going to occur? Anybody?
They don't have a location yet, but
The location was just firmed up today. It's going to be in the MTA boardroom.
MTA boardroom. A lot of microphones, a lot of seats, and hopefully a lot of goodwill. Okay. So that being said, this meeting is adjourned. And again, thank you very much for your hard work.